Hello, everybody. Welcome back to How Come. This episode is amazing. I love it so, so much. We are talking about keeping it spicy in long-term relationships, new relationships, why it's so hard to talk about sex with your partner, and how to do it better. And who better to do this with than Vanessa and Xander Marin. You might remember Vanessa from season 3. She is a sex therapist with 20 years of experience. Xander Marin is her partner. He's a regular dude. Together, they share the ups and downs of their relationship while giving you step-by-step techniques for improving yours. You can tune into their podcast, Pillow Talks, join their email list at vmtherapy.com for totally doable sex tips, practical relationship advice, hilarious and honest stories of what really goes on behind closed bedroom doors, and so much more. We're talking about that and their brand new book, Sex Talks, the 5 conversations that will transform your love life. Again, you're going to love this episode. I love these 5 conversations, and I'm so excited for you to hear it. If you want to see this episode totally unedited and with video, head to patreon.com/howcome. For just $5, you get every episode that we've done via Zoom, unedited with video. For $6, you can listen to all of the episodes without any ads. And for $3, you can listen to the original episodes before we swapped out any of the old ads, because some of those have the stories again. And so much more to enjoy. Again, patreon.com/howcome. Rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, because we have new episodes coming out, so you'll want to know right when they drop. And leave a review if you haven't, and a rating, please. We would appreciate it so much. All right, let's get this episode started.
How come? How come? How come I can't achieve? How come I can't achieve? I'm rolling up my sleeves. I'm rolling up my sleeves. Oh baby, I believe these guests can help. 'Cause I can't do it by myself. I wanna jizz.
You guys, welcome to How Come. Vanessa, welcome back. And Xander, welcome for the first time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be back.
I'm excited to be here.
Last time you were in your in-laws' house, I believe. It was like peak COVID. Did you ever escape?
We did escape. Robin and I were talking about it, though, that we were like, it's so funny that like the last time we were just talking about like, how to not kill the person you live with. Like, that was like the main thing of the episode.
We've come so far.
Yeah.
For those of you who do not remember Vanessa, she is a sex therapist of 20 years, and Xander is her life partner, husband, and also business partner, who also talks about sex and relationships with her. So Xander, I have to ask, how is it being a normal guy who was just a normal guy one day and now is like a spokesman for good relationships and a good sex life?
Oh, I would say at this point now, it's awesome. I love it. It was definitely a struggle. I've been on my own journey throughout our entire relationship around me being comfortable talking about myself and really being comfortable looking at my own sex life and our sex life. At this point, it's really awesome, but
not what you were anticipating
it's
doing
not,
with your life.
No, it is 100%. It is 0% what I thought would be happening when Vanessa and I first started dating. I was like, it's cool that she wants to be, she's studying to be a sex therapist. That's so cool. So I'll tell my friends like, oh yeah, my this girl I'm dating must be really into sex.
She's pretty liberated.
Oh yeah.
We were very young when we met, if you couldn't tell from that description.
Yeah, that was my 22-year-old voice.
See, that could be like a 43-year-old man as well. Like you just never know. Sadly.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify. It was 22-year-old bad.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, back then I was like, cool. Vanessa gets to talk about sex with other people. Maybe I get to, we get to talk conceptually about like the issues that people face, but I don't ever have to deal with it myself, right? Because I'm just like a regular dude. I'm good at sex. Like we have a good sex life. We're never going to have a problem. Like we're never going to need help. And then very, very quickly after a couple of years, like, it had been super hot and heavy. And then life caught up and it wasn't hot and heavy. And we absolutely needed help. And it took me a long time to come around to understanding that it was okay to get help. It wasn't an indictment on me.
Totally.
That in fact, we could improve things. And, fast forwarding, now here we are, and it's great to talk about it.
Totally. Vanessa, were there ever times that you were talking to people and you were like, I need to take this conversation home with me.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, that was some times that, I've dealt with a lot of imposter syndrome over the course of my career. I think it's really easy for us to feel like when we pick a career in something, we're supposed to be the expert at it, really good at it. And so I had so many moments. I mean, I had times of struggling with orgasm, not being able to orgasm with partners. When Xander was mentioning, the early days of our relationship, when our sex life really took a nosedive. So it has definitely been something that's been a challenge for me. But I've also been able to realize it's the times that I talk about those vulnerable moments, the times where I talk about not always getting it right, that people resonate a lot more than if I were to just come on here and say, we have a perfect sex life, no questions about us. Like that's just not very relatable.
No, and I relate to it so much too, just as somebody who I signed up for this field just because I didn't know how to come, but then I was quickly assigned like a cum expert. And I was like, no. And I felt so inadequate sometimes when I'd be interviewing couples or people talking about their sex lives. And I was like, wait, we're not doing this. And like, I should be doing this. I should know this because like, this is stuff that we talk about, but it's like, it's really nice to see the professionals and the people who are helping other people step back and go, oh no, of course we need help too.
Yeah. We all know what we should be doing. Like we all know the good things for us, but it's very easy for life to get in the way, for us to not want to do those things, to feel embarrassed about doing those things. So I think that's really what has helped people connect with us and resonate with us, is that we're very transparent about the ups and downs in our own relationship and our own sex life. We put a lot of very embarrassing stories into the book that I'm having a little bit of a vulnerability hangover for. But yeah, I think it's important for people to hear that and know that they're not alone in whatever challenges they're having in the bedroom.
Totally. You guys just wrote a book called Sex Talks, the 5 conversations that will transform your love life.
Yeah. And this is the book that I wish someone had given us when we were struggling, because it would have been so helpful to be like, oh, these are the 5 conversations we need to have. Because we probably mucked through it having like 50 conversations. And some of them were good. Some of them were not good. We really try to distill it down into like, these are the 5 best, the 5 key ones that are really going to get you through this.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just go into the 5 conversations that you need to have. The first one is acknowledgement. Is that just...
Sex is a thing and we have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So most people feel really embarrassed talking about sex. It feels very awkward. We feel like we shouldn't have to do it. It's a bad sign if we have to talk about our sex life.
You never see it in media.
Exactly.
Nope.
You never see people being like, hey, like that was really fun last night. But it's always like somebody like wiping off a desk and having the best sex you've ever seen.
I know.
Yeah.
And we've seen that, I think we get, as rational adults, we can understand, okay, the sex that we see in TV and movies isn't necessarily real. But when you see that exact same scene just over and over for decades, of course, we're going to internalize like, oh, I shouldn't have to talk about it. Like, that's a bad sign. I've never seen anyone talk about it. So that first conversation, we wanted to find a way to ease people into this and to not go to that extreme of like, you only bring it up when there's a huge problem and it turns into a fight and then you really never want to talk about sex again. So acknowledgement is just getting comfortable with sex as a topic of conversation. Like we want couples to feel like it's not this big, scary thing to talk about. So one super practical takeaway from that chapter, like something that somebody listening to this episode could do today is to think about one of your favorite sexual memories with your partner. We had to clarify that recently. Somebody was like, with another partner? I was like, no, do not talk about.
Yeah, whatever you do, let's avoid that one.
So one of your favorite memories with your partner.
To hear that because they're like oversharers like me.
Unless you guys are turned on by that. You want to talk about past partners. Go for that. But in general, about with your current partner and share that with them. So if you're really nervous, shoot it over text messages, or you can just tell it to them face to face, but you're not trying to solve any problems. You're not giving any criticisms, no complaints. We're not doing anything with the conversation. It's literally just, hey, do you remember that? Yeah, that anniversary trip that we took and that hotel that we were in. So you're introducing sex as a topic of conversation and helping your partner realize this can be fun, flirty, lighthearted. It doesn't have to be anything heavy.
It's like when Elle Woods calls Warner and she's like, remember those 4 hot hours we had in the hot tub after spring formal?
Yes.
But they're not dating, so it's not as good.
That's a great example. I'm going to have to use that now. Be like Elle Woods.
Be like Elle Woods. Do you remember what your first conversation like that was for the two of you?
I mean, our first conversation about sex was a fight about sex, for sure. I mean, we probably had like little moments of like, hee hee, you know, we're having sex. This is fun. But the first real conversation was just an argument about it. And, you know, a lot of these conversations and a lot of the advice that we share in this book, it was discovered by us doing all the wrong things.
Stuff.
Like,
yeah,
I mean, I definitely... I kind of attacked Xander when our sex life was not,
for sure,
you know, not doing very well. It was like, why don't you want to have sex with me? Why aren't we having sex very often? Why am I always the one initiating?
Actually, you know, I think maybe our first real serious talk about sex was more around orgasm. It was that I wasn't paying very much attention to you because I had my own misunderstanding of how sex works, thanks to a previous ex-girlfriend of mine who decided to let me in on what she called, you know, a little secret about how all women work. And she was like, you know, sometimes you come, sometimes you don't. It's better to not put too much pressure on it. It's still super enjoyable, even if you don't. And I was like, oh my God, I have it figured out. I know exactly what to do. And it turned out that was her experience, maybe.
Or maybe she was just trying to like take the pressure off you or whatever because of what I remember I used to be that kind of girl that I was like, it's fun no matter what. And I was like low-key like, I've never come.
Yeah. So when we started having sex together, like he was very much about his own pleasure. It was kind of like sex was on his timeline. And I kept catching myself thinking like, this guy is so wonderful in every other way. Like he's funny and he's generous and kind and like we're hitting it off so well, but he's kind of an asshole in the bedroom. And I just am not understanding the disconnect. And so fortunately we were able to, I think you're right. That was probably one of the first conversations where, and again, I did it in the wrong way. I think I was like, why the fuck don't you pay any attention to me during sex?
I think it was wrapped up a little bit in some performance anxiety that I was also having. And it felt like this battle of like, okay, well, like, how do I get through this performance anxiety and also make sure that that's working for you? And we were just, it wasn't great. It took, you know, I don't know, a couple of weeks of kind of processing that and letting that settle down before I started to realize, okay, let's try to make sure that she gets at least as good of an experience as I get.
But it was a big surprise to you. You were like, oh, like I didn't realize that's how it was coming off. Like I thought I was being a good partner to you, not putting
pressure on. Yeah.
And that's just such a classic thing that happens when we don't talk about sex. It's so easy to have these misunderstandings. Like Xander thought he was being this stand-up great partner, like so generous and not putting pressure. And I'm over here thinking, wow, this guy is really selfish.
And he's never going to address it. Yeah. And then it just gets bottled up and then boils over.
And I can imagine how much worse that could be for a couple who's been together for years and years. Like this came up for us within maybe the first 3 months of us being together. But imagine if you are married to someone for like 10 years and that's been going on the whole time and eventually it boils over. It's going to be so much worse.
I like what you said though too, Vanessa, about like, you're like, he was great in every other facet of our relationship. So I was like you were like confused because like, there's a lot of times when people are having like a lull where it's like, you're not sure if it's like, is our sex life bad or does this person like suck? And are they like not for me? And I think being able to like tell the difference, like you're like, he has all these other great qualities. Like he must eventually be willing to fix stuff if I voice it, you know? Whereas there's other people that it's like, if they're doing nothing for you in any other area, then like that might be a time for like a breakup. But this is like a time for a communication and like a reevaluation.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely ended not relationships, but like dating situations in the past before I met Xander. I ended things if I felt like, this isn't working. I don't like the way they show up in the bedroom. And fortunately, those were the kinds of situations you're describing. Like there just wasn't enough outside the bedroom to even, warrant talking about it. But honestly, I mean, maybe I could look back and think like, what if I had had a conversation with that person instead of just ending it? Maybe there could have been something there, but
Ooh,
that's okay. Don't look at Xander. Yeah.
I'm glad.
I'm glad it didn't work out that way. I'm glad we had
too.
that conversation, even though it was a bad conversation. But yeah, we've learned a lot.
Totally. And then the second conversation is connection, AKA what do we need to feel connected to each other?
Yeah, so we wanted to start talking about emotional intimacy. I think a lot of us think about sex and we think of it as just this purely physical act that we do in the dark in our bedrooms, and it's this sequestered away part of our relationship. But to us, there's a really inextricable link between emotional intimacy and physical intimacy. And so we wanted to start with that emotional intimacy. So many couples, especially in long-term relationships, tell us, we just feel like we're more roommates rather than romantic partners. We're ships passing in the night. We just feel very disconnected from each other. And for most people, if you feel like strangers to your partner, like it's not the sexy kind of stranger. You're like, I don't want to have sex with you. Like
it's not the sitting on your numb hand stranger and then jacking off.
So we wanted to help couples create more emotional intimacy in their relationship so they feel closer together and they have a better relationship overall too.
So it's like things that you do throughout the day for the other person, or like how you speak to each other throughout the day?
Yeah. So by the end of that chapter, people will have a list of, we call them like throwing your logs on the fire. Like the ways to keep the spark alive is to throw logs on the fire. So like, what are your logs? So you'll have a list of a handful of things that are really impactful and meaningful to your partner.
Yeah. I think the key here is that it very often, like the things that I love that are going to make me feel super connected to Vanessa aren't necessarily the things that Vanessa loves. And so being able to have that conversation is so important. So you get to really understand like, oh, okay, I love it when Vanessa gives me a hug or cuddles with me, but that's not her default thing. She
not a cuddler.
She loves when I give her compliments, and compliments for me I enjoy a compliment, but I'm just not thinking about it on an everyday basis. Like, oh, it would be so meaningful if I complimented her for, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But, now I know, okay, these are the things that are going to move the needle the most for Vanessa. So let me try to incorporate a little bit more of that if I'm feeling disconnected, or just if I'm personally feeling a little disconnected. I know that I can ask for the thing that I want, like some physical intimacy, or some non-sexual physical intimacy, because I know that doesn't come as naturally to Vanessa. So I'll just be like, hey, let's have a hug.
Yeah. One of mine for that Ben does that I noticed is he knows I like it when I show up to like a clean space in his house. And so like I went over there the other day and it was like the bed was made and everything was like put away or stuffed under something so that it looked good. And like at least 2 candles. And I was just like, oh, like that immediately puts me in the mood for like a good time.
Oh yeah. I have a secret turn on for a made bed. Xander's gotten really good. Like we even have decorative pillows now and like folding the blanket down. It's
so nice.
It gets me every time it gets me, but it takes you what? 3 minutes to make the bed.
Yeah.
And it's like such a positive effect on
Yeah. I literally showed up. I hadn't asked and I was like,
yeah,
this is so nice.
I know.
And it feels like a cheat code almost. Like
totally.
I think that it's
and
that's
hack.
why you got to talk about it to actually reinforce like, no, I'm serious. When you do that thing that only took 2 extra minutes, it actually is so impactful for me. Because for a while, I just kind of like, if I gave Vanessa a specific compliment that she really loves, she totally freaks out in a good way. And there's this part of me that before would kind of disregard that and be like, well, that was so easy. That can't possibly have really mattered because I don't value it the same way. But now I really know, no, she's 100% telling the truth. Like that's real. Like I can spend an extra 20 seconds doing the nice folding thing when I'm making the bed, instead of looking at making the bed as an annoying chore that I don't really like, because honestly, I don't care that much about a made bed. But now I'm like, oh, this turns her on. This makes her so happy. Why wouldn't I spend those extra 20 seconds?
I think that's what's so nice about it too, is like, they're doing the thing that's counterintuitive to them because it makes you happy. So like, I like a compliment, but I like really appreciate like a good nickname. And that's not like so much in Ben's wheelhouse. But then like sometimes he'll just be like lemon cream. And I'm like, ah!
Can it be a rotating nickname, or is your nickname just lemon cream for eternity now?
No, I was like, I like more variety. And it like after 5 lemon creams, I was like, okay, like say something cute. Like say something else that's cute. Like come another one.
You like to mix it up with your nicknames.
Yeah. Well, because I'm a nickname machine, like my cat has like 53 names at this point.
Oh, yeah.
So Ben goes from Ben to Pondu to Chupem to like Glorious Sweet, like anything.
You're creative.
They
it's not just
come
like
out of
Benny.
No, that one I won't. That's like his nickname for everyone else calls him Benny, and I won't.
Benny's off limits.
It's not creative enough.
Do bending. A crazy person. Okay, so then the third conversation is desire, aka what do we each need to do to get turned on?
So yeah, desire and connection kind of overlap with each other. Those are the real golden nuggets, is when you can find the thing that makes you feel the emotional intimacy and the desire, the bed for sure. It's a good one. But yeah, this conversation is all about understanding what do we need to get excited about having sex. And I think a lot of us, we think about feeling the desire for sex literally in just the moments before sex happens, because that's how we always see it in the movies, right? It's like you get spontaneously turned on. 10 seconds later, you're running into the bedroom, wiping off the desk, ripping each other's clothes off. But we like to think of desire as something that can stretch throughout the entire day, or even that like foreplay for the next time starts the moment that you finish having sex. So again, it's all about the practical things here. So like, what are those ways to like keep that tension, that simmer alive between the two of you so that it feels like an easier step into being intimate? And then we also go into a lot of details about how to actually initiate sex, because this is a big area that trips up so many of us. Like, for so many of us, initiating sex is like, do you want to do it?
Literally.
Like, that's not exciting.
In all 5 years of How Come, all I've come up with is put it.
So you should read this chapter then.
Yeah.
There'll be some good ones, good things for you to learn in there.
Yeah, and just like the connection stuff that I was just talking about, with initiation, there's also this whole style component where we all have different ways that we like to be initiated with. And, we see the world through our own eyes. And so without talking about it, we tend to initiate in the way that we would want to be initiated with in that moment. And if that's not what your partner is into, then it's not going to feel exciting. And it's definitely a tougher ask. I think people are missing so many more opportunities for sex because of just purely the way that they are or aren't initiating.
Yeah. One of the examples that I give in the book is like, if you think about, like, if you want to see a friend of yours, like you're going to let's say you call up your best girlfriend. You're like, girl, there's this brand new restaurant that opened down the street. Do you want to go? We can go get cocktails beforehand and then we can go over there. Like, that's an invitation, right? But then you think about like how we're actually inviting our partner to be intimate with us. Yeah. I mean, imagine calling your girlfriend and being like, I guess we haven't seen each other. Yeah,
put it in the restaurant.
Like, I guess we haven't seen each other in a while. Like, we should probably
do
right?
that. Yeah.
Like, who's gonna be excited to say yes to that? So this is all about making initiation feel like an exciting invitation, something someone actually wants to say yes to.
Or it's like, I'm already at the restaurant. How fast can you meet me at the restaurant? Yes. Like, I feel like that's like people who like wake you up with like a boner and like your back or whatever. They're like,
yes,
I've ordered for both of us. And you're like, wait, I'm not hungry yet. I didn't know.
Exactly. I should have consulted you before writing the book. I'm like, no, I'm not even hungry. I'm like 2 miles away from the restaurant.
I just ate.
Leave me alone, girl.
In my dream, I was just eating with someone else, and now I'm shocked. Okay, so what are some, like, I know, I think touching that is non-sexual is always a like real win for me, that it's like, do we want to swap massages? You know, like that always, like, I know what's coming, but also if we don't want to, then we've both just had massages, which is really nice.
Yeah. So that's one of the initiation styles is touching.
Okay, great.
You like leading with that touch. But for somebody else who's not super into touch, they might think like, why are you giving me a back massage? Like, we know what this is. Don't give me a back massage.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want the back massage, and right now I don't want what comes after the back massage.
Yeah.
Right. This isn't going to ease me in. So with those people, how do we make them feel comfortable?
So yeah, you can go through the initiation styles in the book and have these conversations with each other about like, which ones do you resonate with the most? What do you like? But another really practical thing that people can do is take a little bit of time to think about when your partner has initiated sex with you and see if you can come up with like 1 or 2 examples of times that you really liked. You thought it was just super sexy, and share those with each other. Because oftentimes with initiation, we feel really vulnerable. I mean, I still feel vulnerable initiating sex with Xander, and we've been having sex for 15 years. And so when we feel vulnerable, we default to doing these like I'm just trying to like give him the look, you know, and he's like, do you have something in your eye?
You got to have some plausible deniability. Oh yeah, no, it was just
I was just joking.
I was joking. God, like why would you think I was doing that?
So, but if Xander were to tell me, like, here were these 2 times that you initiated sex, like, I love it when you do this. Like, for example, like, I love it when you just walk into the room wearing lingerie or something like that. Then I feel this excitement because I don't have to come up with something creative to do. He's telling me what he liked, and I have this reassurance of knowing if I do that, he's going to like it, you know. So it gives me that confidence to initiate in ways that feel more exciting.
That's good. I'm thinking about an initiation I did the other day where Ben was like touching my body and he had a hangnail or whatever, and I was like, like that like hurts. I was like, do you want me to like file your nails in case like you need to finger me at any point? And he was like, yeah. And then I filed his nails, and then I was like, okay, like now you're ready just in case.
See, that's really like fun and playful. I love that. Like initiation doesn't have to be wildly sexy. Like we're very goofy with each other too. You know, like sometimes we'll initiate sex by like making a bet on something of like, okay, whoever wins gets oral sex, that kind of thing. So it doesn't need to be this seductive, like, I'm going to meet you at the door in a trench coat with like saran wrap on and nothing else. Like it can be funny, but it's just, again, having those conversations with each other where you know, like, oh, I like it when we're really silly with each other when we initiate.
Okay, and then number 4 is pleasure.
What do we need to feel good to have an enjoyable and satisfying experience?
Yeah, and it's basically everything you need to do so you don't have the experience that I had where, you know, I think I know what works for all women and I just start doing it and it turns out I'm totally off base.
Yeah, so this is all about having these conversations about what feels really enjoyable for you, which sounds like, I mean, that's one of the main reasons we have sex is to feel good. But so many of us have never talked openly about exactly what we like and don't like necessarily in the bedroom. And so this is a very gentle way to ease into that. There's not a like, you suck at fingering me, like you really need to get better. I'm not going to have that kind of conversation, but discovering, you know, how to talk about it in a better way. And there are a lot of fun exercises in that chapter. Like there's a touch map where you get to kind of identify where on your body do you like to be touched and how do you like to be touched there?
Yeah.
And what kind of sexual energy do you like to experience between the two of you? So for someone who's like, I don't really know what I want, there are a ton of exercises to help you discover that and then communicate it. And then we do talk in particular about the orgasm gap, which I know you're totally familiar with.
We're all over it.
We're all over it. We're trying to close it.
Yeah.
So we talk about the fact that men and, in male-female relationships, men are having way more orgasms than women. The way that we see those same fucking sex scenes every single time, it's all about male pleasure. It's so intercourse heavy. And so we present accurate information about how female pleasure and orgasm really work in that chapter so that you can read it together and you don't have to have this heavy conversation with your partner of like, you're doing everything wrong. It's instead like, oh, wow, I didn't realize this was happening. Oh, these are some interesting tips that we could use. So it feels really fun.
Yeah, I think it can be hard when the conversation starts like, hey, I'm actually not enjoying this. It's so easy for guys to take that personally because we've been socialized to think that we're supposed to be really good at sex. We're supposed to have already figured it all out because sex is, it's this big embarrassing topic. And, our identity as a man is being super good at it. And so, we start having sex with, new
Which
partner.
Is crazy.
We get into a relationship.
That can't be your guy's identity. Like,
this was such a fascinating conversation that we had, and we've continued to have. Even like a couple of months ago, we were talking about this, but like, it's so hard for me to fully understand the pressure that he feels. And even with us doing this work together, being together for so long, like and also Xander's a feminist. Like he's not a like alpha bro, like, I gotta be dominant in the bedroom kind of thing. Like he's a very liberal feminist dude. And still he feels this incredible pressure to like, I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. I'm supposed to take the lead. I'm supposed to be in charge. And even with me saying like, well, that's actually not what I want though. And that's not what I'm looking for. Like that socialization just gets in so deep.
It's the toxic, I think, bravado or whatever. Because I've said this before. I remember thinking that men who did listen to women or like who catered to women's pleasure, like, oh, that made you like a weakling, or like we used to say back in the day, a pussy, which all those things were seen as a negative thing. And now I'm like, how detrimental was that to all of us?
I know.
Yeah. And I mean, and then, the next problem is if I think, okay, well, I think I know what I'm doing. Like, I feel like I have good experience. I know how to do it. Then what that means is that I think that there's a specific way that's going to work for everyone. And the reality is, and that what we try to present in the book is that it's so different for every single woman, what's really going to bring her the most pleasure.
Every single person.
Every single person. But especially with, the way the clitoris is depending on how close it is to the vagina and whatnot, like some amount of internal penetration might be more pleasurable to some and less pleasurable to others. And so there really is no one size fits all.
And it's especially not reliant on the penis.
Like, it is. Yeah, especially.
A lot of people with penises have been slighted by the fact that we're like, oh, you need to have a big penis to like satisfy a vulva, when it's like, no, you need to have fingers, a tongue, and a can-do attitude. Unfortunately, you don't actually really need the penis is really just for it's
you
really
and
nice.
Your pleasure.
I know.
It's so cute. Love them. Like there's nothing that makes me happier than watching it grow and say hello. But like, do we need it? Not necessarily.
So it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to read about that in the book, and to we try to talk about the ways that we have gotten these messages, really from childhood or from puberty, and it's easier to understand. Oh, it's not about me. It's not about me and my penis. It's about kind of these lies that we've been fed over time.
And I think this is one of the most intimate conversations that we've had, is realizing the pressures that we each feel around sex, like the expectations that Xander has of himself, the expectations that I have of myself, like sharing those with each other. It was so vulnerable, but incredibly bonding to realize like, wow, we've both been fed a lot of BS. We're both coming into this experience feeling so much pressure and embarrassment and anxiety. And like, that's actually not what either one of us want. So we both had so much compassion for each other. We got to talk about like, what do we actually want our sex life to look like? What actually feels good for us, not just what we've been taught to believe it's supposed to look like.
Yeah, I feel like I was just like, oh yeah, okay, they tell us what to do and stuff. But now that I know my what to do to tell him, I feel like I have more compassion because if he tells me, like every time we're having sex, he's like, grab my balls. Every time. At a certain point, Ben will be like, grab my balls. And at no point am I offended that I'm like, oh, he thinks I'm not doing this the right way, or he's mad that I don't remember it. Like, he's just reminding me at this point, this is when I want it to happen or whatever. And so then I don't feel as bad being like, no, kiss the leg. No, keep the panties on for a second because I think it's hotter for, like it's supposed to be constant communication. Whereas with exes, and even Ben, before I got better at speaking, I'd get like mad and be like, how does he not remember this from last time?
Yes.
And it's like, sometimes people don't remember stuff. Like I know I don't. I forget to grab the balls constantly.
I also feel like I forget what I like from time to time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I know one experience that I enjoyed it, and then the next time it's happening, and I'm like, oh shit, I should have.
Yeah.
That was a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's such a good point because we hear from so many people who are like, yeah, I already told my partner what I like. And I'm like, oh, this is not a one and done conversation.
Yeah, I told him 5 years ago and we were drunk.
Yeah. But also the thing is like, it can be incredibly sexy to tell each other that too. Yeah. Like, it's not this like, oh God, I have to remind you again, Remy. Like, you forget every time, touch the balls. But like,
grab the balls, that can be
sexy.
You idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like,
no, and it is. Whenever he's saying it, he's just, that means I'm at this point where it's time to grab the balls. Like, exciting.
It's good. Yeah. So we want couples to get to that level of comfort with communicating where we're not so in our heads about like, I already told him this, or like, I can't tell him this because it's going to hurt his fragile little male ego, or like, he's just supposed to magically know what I want. We want to, it's hot to
and
talk
then it's
about
that festering again. Like, sex isn't fun. I've had so much like fester sex where I've been like sitting there with like my face just being like, hate you. And it's like, you're not making this hotter. And like, how is it supposed to get better? Like, don't, if you're really having such a bad time, like, stop, like, don't force yourself. And like, hopefully they read your mind.
I know.
But again, they should check in. I guess if your face looks like that, they should be like, are you good?
What is going on? Can you explain this?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's so wild. Sex is supposed to be this very intimate experience. And yet so often we're like, we're off in our own worlds, having our own totally different and not very enjoyable or relaxing experience. And so there's this incredible opportunity for couples to actually come together in that moment and then come together in that moment, but like to experience this real intimacy of being present with each other in the moment.
And then the last conversation is exploration, which is, what should we try next? How do you guys go about that conversation?
So this conversation is all about keeping it spicy, trying new things in the bedroom, mixing it up with your nicknames. And this is another great example of things we know we should be doing. Like, we've all heard the advice to keep it spicy in the bedroom, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of us we get performance anxiety about that. We ask the question.
You also go like immediately to like role play and like butt stuff,
kinky.
Like something like really like
threesome.
Yeah, like something like kind of more extreme. That's like whenever you, not that those things are extreme, but it's like for people that aren't doing those things, whenever you hear like keep it spicy, like that's where my brain goes to initially.
Yeah, or at the very least, it's like something completely brand new that neither of us have any experience with. I think that's where our mind goes. So it's extreme in that sense.
That's
like,
so daunting.
I haven't done any of the 5 steps kind of required to get more comfortable with that yet. Yeah.
So this chapter is all about how do we do new things, but in a way that feels approachable and fun instead of this huge, anxious, ball of nerves kind of experience. So one of the great exercises that we have there in that chapter is a list of things that you could try in the bedroom. And some of them are very small, because that's another thing. Like, you don't have to make a monumental change change. Sometimes even, changing the limb in a position that you're in, all of a sudden it feels really different.
Yeah, like weight on the forearm versus the, on the hand or the elbow or something like something small like that. And all of a sudden it feels totally different to both people.
Yeah. So it's this list that you get to go through. You can circle the ones that you're interested in. Your partner can circle it. You guys can have a conversation about which ones are on your joint list. But that's just a great example of it's easier to choose things from a menu than to feel like you have to come up with this wildly kinky answer that you've never done, out of nowhere on the spot, and then you have to do it. And then we also lay out when there is something new that you want to try, the exact steps to break it down and ease your way into it rather than immediately like we're having our first threesome. So one thing that we can do is if it's something that does feel like a bigger, more daunting thing, a great first step is talking dirty about it. So you don't actually even have to change anything. You don't even have to do it. And you don't even eventually have to work your way up to it. For some people, like just talking dirty about it can be sexy in and of itself. Actually, a threesome is a great example of that. A lot of people say like, oh, I'm turned on by the idea of a threesome. But then when I really think through, like, what would it actually be like to see my partner having sex with another person? I don't know if I could do it. So dirty talk is a great way to gauge your comfort with something. Yeah. But you may discover like, we just like talking dirty, pretending there's another person there, but we actually are fine stopping at this step.
Yeah, I mean, you could discover, like, you could be like, oh, it actually feels really uncomfortable to even dirty talk about it, which is probably a sign, no, I don't want to do this in real life. Or it's like, oh, this is a huge turn on talking about it, but as soon as we finish, then I'm like, feel a little uncomfortable. And maybe that's a sign that, hey, let's leave it with the dirty talk, because if we actually have that person here, that might feel uncomfortable. Or you're like, oh my God, like I feel even more like I want to do it now, then that's probably a good sign that, you want to take it to the next level.
What happens when one party is feeling it like, oh, I want to take it to the next level, and the other one is like, I'm super uncomfortable with this?
So the first step is for the person who feels uncomfortable with it to feel into where that discomfort comes from. So we all have some amount of shame and embarrassment with sex. And a lot of times we tell ourselves, I don't want to do something, or I can't do something, because that shame is getting in our way. So butt stuff is a great example. A lot of people still feel like, oh, the butt, it's like taboo, it's weird. And so a lot of times it's more about that shame than it is about our own personal boundaries around our sex life. So taking a little bit of time to explore that. And there is an exercise in sex talks around uncovering where does the discomfort come from. And then so if you discover, okay, I think maybe that's more about shame, I don't actually have any like safety or boundaries, reasons why I don't want to do this. One thing to do is to consider, is there a way that you could adjust the thing? Maybe just do a little piece of it to try it out. Or maybe it's like, I don't want to have anal intercourse at first, but I'd be open to you using a finger on me, and we see how that goes.
I want you to massage my butt cheeks.
Yes, massage those cheeks.
Even less.
Exactly. So if you kind of ease your way into it, then you can get this better sense of, okay, that felt actually good. I was surprised by how great that butt massage felt. Let's try the little fingertip instead. And even if you do still decide like, you know what, I wasn't into that, I don't really want to go further, it still feels validating to your partner. Like your partner feels like, hey, they were willing to, explore where the discomfort came from. They were willing to give it a little bit of a shot. So it doesn't end up making your partner feel ashamed for wanting that thing in the first place.
Yeah, I think that feels so different from just being like, hey, would you be open to trying this thing? And you just hear a hard no, and we're never talking about that again. Then you feel really unseen and disregarded, or maybe you even resent your partner. You're like, they didn't even give this a fair shot. So when you at least start taking a couple steps in that direction, then and keeping the communication open about it, that would feel so much more different for me. If like Vanessa starts trying something, we're talking about it, and she's like, like I'm still not really loving this, or this is what it's feeling like for me, then that's so much more understandable.
But I also want to be super clear too that like people are allowed to have their boundaries in the bedroom.
100%.
Like you're allowed to say, I'm not interested in that. I don't even want to explore the little baby step. That's okay. Yeah. We all get to have the hard nose. That's fine.
And you can do that without shaming the other person too. And I'm thinking about this guy that DM'd us a while back who was like, my girlfriend doesn't want to give head. Like, how do I make her give head, basically? And I was like, well, you don't. I was like, first you have to like take that off the table, because if that's something that she really, really, really never wants to do, that's something that she never wants to do. But I would advise like asking her, like, what is the thing that you don't like about this? Is there like a past thing that you associate it with? How could I make it better? Like, you know, is it the sucking, or like, would you be down to kiss it? If like, you know, but being more sensitive and wondering like, how did we get to this hard boundary? And then respecting it when you get the reason.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the things that we found with blowjobs and women performing blowjobs in particular is the biggest resistance to it is feeling like you're not good at it.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know you could be bad at it.
But yeah, you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be really good at something. And I want to, you know, try to like push away all these, you know, trying something that I might not be good at so that someone might find out that I'm not perfect at sex.
Oh, I trained for a year in secret, just trying to have sex, like getting it in, because I was like, I don't want to be bad at sex. You know, and that's like, there is no bad at sex. If you're doing it with somebody that like respects you and you're respecting your body, like you're going to figure it out in a nice way. I had one more thing I was going to say too, about the exploration and comfort. You mentioned like it could be as simple as like moving a leg, or like moving your weight distribution a different way. Like it's like kind of like stretching. Like you don't have to know technically how to stretch, but like sometimes if like you know that like your back is achy, like your body will just kind of like bend in the way, and like you'll find a new stretch. Like I found a new stretch the other day, and then I was like, oh yeah, I've never done this. And I was like, I never needed it before, but like I kind of just like figured it out, and it was like really nice. And like the same thing happened recently in bed, where like I in my head was like, this kind of feels uncomfortable. What if I just moved my leg and I was like, hey, Ben, like flip me this way or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, this feels so cool and better. And like, it's nice to be able to like trust in your body and your mind. Like when you're having the conversations about stuff, like, you know, when you're comfortable and when you're like erring on uncomfortable, and like with your body, like, you know, when your body's comfortable. So like go with it.
Yeah, and the great thing is when you have these conversations that are in sex talks, it frees up all this mental space that we're usually like so up in our heads, feeling anxious and worried and nervous, and it gives us the space to drop down into our bodies and listen to what's actually going on in our bodies, to feel the sensation that's happening in our bodies, and to have that level of being tuned into ourselves where we can like, hey, yeah, flip me around like that.
That's what everybody always said in the beginning. They're like, don't focus on the orgasm. Like, focus on like having a good time in the moment and like your senses. Like, and it's like smell and touch and taste and stuff. But it's like, do you feel comfortable? Yeah.
Yeah, it's for sure a big part of it. It's just being able to be in that moment, in that experience. And that's so many people tell us that, like, I feel like I'm just never in the moment with sex. It's like I'm going through the motions of it. My body is physically doing it, but I'm not actually present there. So that's another skill that we teach in the book.
Cool. I love that. Okay, Robin, you can ask your questions now.
No, just thinking about that. I was just thinking sometimes I'm like too into it. Like I'll be like doing something and they'll be like, yeah, that's good. And then I'm like thinking about it too much. And I'm like, oh shit, what was I doing? I can't remember what I was doing. And I just like, too out of it. And I'm like, oh fuck, I've lost everything now. And like, I feel like that just on that, being able to like take yourself out and be like, okay, wait, what was I doing? That was good.
What was I doing?
Yeah, you know, another good trick that you can use in a moment like that is you could like, let's say, so we have in the book this exercise called the eye exam test, where basically the breakdown of it is like having you do two different things to your partner and you ask them to pick which one they like better.
Oh yeah.
So if you were like, wait, I can't remember, like, how was I just moving my hand on the penis or on a vulva or something like that? Like, try out two different things and say, okay, do you like it better when I do this or this? Because just being able to choose from two in the moment, yeah, it feels a lot easier for your partner, and it feels sexy for you too. So it can be a fun trick to try.
Or 5.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's actually not bad because I do lose track
Yeah, but also if the other person is like in the moment and has open communication with you, they could be like, you were doing that stroking thing. It was great.
Yeah.
That thing.
Help each other. Help me help you.
Oh my God, that was cute.
Well, you guys, this has been so much fun to have you. Can you remind everybody where people can follow you and where they can get your book?
Yes, we would love to connect with any of your companions. That's still one of my favorite words that I've ever heard somebody come up with for their podcast community.
Thank you.
I was just telling Xander about it before we sat down to record with you. So your companions can find the book at sextalksbook.com. We have all the information there, all the links to order it. And we are most active on Instagram. We're at Vanessa and Xander. We do daily stories. We act out bad sex positions. We do a great series where we ask you, like, what's something that you want your partner to overhear? We will say it loudly, and you can just be watching our stories.
That's perfect.
Blame us.
That's amazing.
That's great.
Actually, we need to come up with a catchy nickname for that.
I'll noodle on it.
If you get into your nickname zone, you can think about it. Vanessa and Xander and sextalksbook.com.
Yeah, we'd love to say hi. Love to hear what your favorite part of the book was, your biggest takeaway, whatever. Or, your favorite nickname in bed.
My nicknames, by the way, are not in bed. They're just in the daytime.
Lemon cream.
Lemon cream is not getting lemon creamed. Okay.
I don't know. Maybe we should we got to take this to the next level. This could be a great online quiz. Like, what's your sex nickname?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's genius.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I love that. If companions want, can they submit positions for you guys to act out?
Please. Yeah, we are always looking for, like, what are the worst ones that you've ever seen online. We've almost broken our backs a couple of times, but we have a whole highlight called positions on our Instagram of us. Like, there's some pretty good ones. So yeah, please send us a little screenshot of some good ones that you want us to act out.
For sure. Okay, you guys, I just have to ask you one question, which I have to ask everybody after the end of a sexual experience. Vanessa and Xander, did you finish?
I finished.
Yeah, I think I'm done.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. And we'll see you guys next time on How Come? Goodbye.
Bye.
It's not you, it's me. I try so hard to finish honestly. They say you'll know when you go all the way from A right down to O. Oh no, I think that I've still got a ways to go. Oh, I'm sick of this and I have got to know. How come? How come? How come I can't achieve? How come I can't achieve? I'm rolling up my sleeves. I'm rolling up my sleeves. Oh baby, I believe these guests can help. 'Cause I can't do it by myself. I wanna jizz